Welcome to Adjusted Reality, a podcast series trusted by the adjusted and brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, where we learn from athletes, celebrities, influencers, and health care professionals about how to optimize health in a fun, relatable way. Join me, Dr. Sherry McAllister, as we welcome Dr. Mindy Pelz, a renowned holistic health expert and leader in women's health education. Dr. Mindy empowers individuals worldwide to tap into their body's own healing abilities through fasting, diet variation, detoxing, stress management, and lifestyle changes. Her high-profile clients, best-selling books, and top-ranked podcast, the Resetter Podcast, makes her a trusted authority in the wellness space. She has been featured everywhere. Well and Good, Real Simple, Healthline. I could go on forever amongst many, many more. She is powered up, and I sincerely mean it, powered up to maximize your life by looking at what works and what does not for your body at the stage of your life, whatever stage that is. So I want to welcome you, Dr. Mindy, to Adjusted Reality.
Oh, thank you. That's quite an intro. I don't know if I can say anything that would match that, but I appreciate the kind words.
I'm telling my audience right now, you're in for an absolute treat because there is very little moss that can grow under Dr. Mindy's feet. And I got to suck all the energy and ensure that you get what you need during this 50-minute podcast. So first and foremost, tell us, Dr. Mindy, what actually started you on this journey to really reset the world to know more about what their body's doing and why it's doing it?
Yeah, it's such a great place to start and a really fascinating question because, so much of what I'm teaching the world now all comes down to the body heals itself, helping people believe in their own miraculous human suit that they get to live in. And there was something that hit me at one point. I was doing, every couple of months, I would do big lectures in my clinic and, we'd get hundreds of people pouring in. And I started to see the thirst that everybody had for this information. And there was like this moment that I thought, why am I keeping this contained to my clinic? Why don't I bring this message to YouTube? And why don't I bring it to Facebook and social media? And so I literally just started teaching how the body heals itself on those platforms. And one day, one video went viral on YouTube and I've never looked back. It was like, oh my gosh, people want to know this. People are awake. And they want to know how to heal their bodies and they want to believe in themselves again. That is one huge thing that the pandemic did is the fear separated those who were feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to stay in a fearful state. And those that are like, no more. I need to know how my body works. And that is where my whole online world just took off, is in those people wanting to believe in themselves again, which is so cool.
It is absolutely amazing. And one thing, Dr. Mindy, as we go through, and Adjusted Reality is now in 101 countries. So there's variations on the theme right now on how we get that message. We have members that this is the first time they've ever even listened to a podcast. We've got chiros, we've got naturopaths. We have all sorts of healthcare providers listening today, along with consumers. And those consumers are looking for a better way. They're looking to adjust what they're in right now. And that's why we call it Adjusted Reality. And you've done such a beautiful way of really looking at health from a different perspective. And one of those is, and I will tell you for my audience, I came back from the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and I was telling Dr. Mindy, and this book, I just brought this book in with me, and it's called Fast Like a Girl. It was so much fun to share with a lot of the yoga therapists out there too, is you're looking at fasting and you're asking yourself, but why? No one talks about it. My MD didn't tell me to do a fasting diet. And then you start to really bring about the message of what is the concept of fasting? What do our audience, regardless of where they sit in life, whether they're a PhD, MD, DC, on and on, or you're just, and I don't mean that in any negative way, you're just looking for something better. You're not a healthcare provider. What's the concept of fasting, and what do they need to know about this new concept? And it's not really new,
Right.
but why adopt it into their lives?
Yeah. And I think, and then I want to add on to that for the doctors, like, and why is it taking over the world? Because in there lies the lesson and the message. So as we all know, the body heals itself. You know, we are a self-healing machine that knows what to do every moment of the day, always working for our survival and for our best interest. And the only thing that stops us from living in a body that feels like perfection are these interferences. And we've talked about them in the chiropractic world so much, the physical interference, but there's emotional interference, there's spiritual interference, and there's chemical interference. And when you actually look at it through that lens, when you look at fasting through that lens, what you realize is you are removing the chemical interference and allowing the body to heal itself. And we live now in a time where we are in the most toxic time in human history. So, you know, and I know we have doctors of all backgrounds, but going back to where chiropractic was discovered in BJ Palmer's time, they didn't have the same physical, emotional, chemical, spiritual interferences that we have now. And the chemical interferences are ginormous. They're huge. And so we have to have a tool that allows the body to heal itself from these interferences. And in my opinion, it has to be a tool that isn't expensive. So when I dove in fasting, I realized, oh my God, when you pull the food out of the equation, whether it's healthy food or not, the body heals itself. And at each hour, this is what I wrote in Fast Like a Girl, there are 6 different lengths fasts. The body continues to heal itself. It's the most principled explanation that I can ever give you of fasting, is that the body knows what to do when we remove that interference. And that's why I wrote the book. The second piece I'll say on that is, when we look at the human body, for a male body, its number one focus is survival, which is amazing. For a female body, the number one focus is survival and then reproduction, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. So it's in that reproductive piece that Fast Like a Girl was born, because I really needed to show, or I wanted to show women how to use fasting according to her cycle, so that she is not only tapping into the body's desire to survive, but also the body's desire to reproduce. And this doesn't mean like I want everybody to go out and have babies. That's not what I'm saying. But I do want women to be hormonally balanced, so we can stop the autoimmune conditions, we can stop the insulin resistance, we can stop the mood disorders, because all of that is happening from a hormonal imbalance. And that's what Fast Like a Girl was. How do we use fasting to help the hormonal health of women?
Well, you're reading my mind, because that I didn't want any of the men that are listening to this adjusted reality to go, oh, it's Fast Like a Girl, I don't need to listen to this podcast. Actually, men, you do need to listen to this podcast, because your life can improve so important ways. And that's one of the things that really, when I started reading through the book and thinking about some of the things we never give credit to about what does fasting do for me. And, I kind of go back to looking at people not recognizing the importance of taking yourself away from the food so the body can actually adopt better physiological processes. Let's ask you that. When you've been doing this now, and I know you have millions of followers that love what you do, they come up with all different opportunities for you to help them figure it out. But first start with, why fasting? What does it actually do for you?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I do want to go back to the part about men because yes, men hang on, because if you have women in your life, as I will make this applicable to everybody, but I also, what I'm hearing from the men out there is they're like, thank you. As I listen to you, I'm starting to understand the women in my life better. So I want to put that out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So fasting, what it does for you is, let's go to the clinical. What we have two energy systems. We have a metabolism that runs off of food we eat, and we have an energy or metabolism that runs off of what we call burning fat. So I call one the sugar burner system, the other one's the fat burning system. And the way the human body was designed is we were actually designed to switch in and out of both of these systems. But as food has become more and more convenient for us, we are not switching into the fat burning energy system, which means we are missing out on so many healing capabilities. Plus, we are missing out on something called a ketone. And a ketone is actually 50% of the fuel for the brain. So if you are never switching into this fat burning system and you're not getting ketones, you are depriving your brain of 50% of its fuel source. That is huge. Now, beyond that, what I mapped out in the book was that there are 6 different length fasts, and it runs everywhere from 12 hours without food all the way up to 72 hours without food. And there are markers that, I'm happy to go through them if you're interested, but please do,
Mindy. Okay. Yes.
So because the markers are really give you such respect for the body. And the first marker is usually about 12 hours without food. As the blood sugar's coming down, you will start to see that the body makes these ketones. It'll switch over into this low nutritional ketogenic state. And ketones actually go up to the brain. They start to repair neurons. They fuel up your thought process. So it gives you mental clarity. But what a lot of people don't know is ketones also help produce GABA. So GABA is our calming neurotransmitter. So most people think the longer they fast, the more upset they will be. Actually, when you train your body to do it, the calmer you become because of the ketones' ability to make GABA. We also know growth hormone goes up. After 30, you're not getting as much growth hormone, which speeds up the aging process. We also are seeing 13 to 15 hours testosterone goes up in men. We're hoping, and we don't have enough data on women, but we're hoping the same thing is happening in women. So we start to see a hormonal shift. We also see things like CRP, the inflammatory markers go down, homocysteine goes down, like your inflammation goes down. And in just something as simple as like somewhere between 12 and 15 hours, you have this massive hormonal shift, and the body starts to become like a better version of itself. Now, before I go on to the other lengths, let's ask ourselves, like, why does that happen? Why would the body do that? Because it has to go find food. So it's designed to go hunt for food. So it has this neurochemical change that happens in your best interest. So you'll go find food. And then we hit like 17 hours, the body goes into a state of autophagy where it actually pushes out all the bad cellular parts. It starts to redo the inside of a cell, so the cell becomes stronger. We see at 24 hours, we start to see that the whole gut, there's a set of intestinal stem cells that get repaired, and our gut becomes a better version. 36 hours, the body starts dropping a ton of weight. Again, all of this is happening because the body is preparing itself. It is trying to get itself out there to go find food. Even though we live in this modern world, we are very primal in that way. And then 48 hours is the dopamine reset. You get new dopamine receptors. Your whole dopamine system reboots itself. So you're motivated to go find food. And then at 72 hours, we see the whole immune system reset itself. Again, the body's keeping itself stronger in this state of what we call hormetic stress. And all of that is happening when we fast. You cannot get that when you eat food. I don't know another scenario that can give you that level of neurochemical change within you. You're just going to have to train yourself to go without food.
So incredibly important. And you did it. I know the audience is like, whoa, she just combined her whole book into just 5 minutes. But you did such an eloquent job of actually determining why fasting is so important, because it's a healing mechanism that happens in our body. And when we start to utilize the body to heal itself, things then become different. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And today I'm asking you to look at the change that happens when you're not eating. And when you're looking at, do I need this in my life? And I will say, after reading the book and watching some of your YouTube videos, Dr. Mindy, it's really purposeful. You develop what the audience is looking for, and the millions of people that have tried this and the millions of people that have written, Dr. Mindy, you saved my life. And I look at some of these people that have such metabolic imbalances, and they feel like they're at that edgy spot where like they just want to give up. And I will tell the audience, in the adjusted reality, it's faith, hope, and love that gets us through this. It is the faith that you can find the answers. And Dr. Mindy's here to tell you that if you're suffering today, and you're really contemplating, I've tried every diet, Dr. McAllister, every diet, and it doesn't work. Stop yourself and say, I'm going to try something a little bit different and think about things a little bit different. Now, I want to talk about one of the number one killers of women and men, and it happens to be diabetes. And I read very carefully how you looked at that, because a lot of you are going to be a little fearful because, well, no one's ever brought this to my attention before. So how do I know I'm not going to have massive, problems with my insulin and my glucose intake? So Dr. Mindy, because it's such a common problem, and I get this question a lot, what about diabetes? I want you to address that because it's so pertinent.
Yeah, it is a really good place to start, or to enhance this conversation. The first thing I would say is that everything I've done between my books, my videos, has been very intentional and very much in support of the chiropractic natural community. So one of the things that I do in my YouTube videos is I ask people to share their stories. And if you have any doubt, go to the videos I've done on diabetes and look at the number of diabetics, whether type 1 or type 2, are really having a positive experience with fasting. Now, even so, the other big one, if you're not aware of it, is that one of the greatest research articles that came out like 3-4 years ago in the New England Journal of Medicine, the medical journal, saying it was a meta-analysis saying, hey, we looked at all the studies on intermittent fasting, and here is what we have decided. Medical community, here is what we've decided is a useful way to use fasting, and diabetes was one of them.
Beautiful.
So if you're scared, you got to educate. You really have to educate, because we are seeing incredible results with that. At the root of all diabetes is insulin resistance, and insulin resistance, as we all know, is happening because oversaturation of insulin. So if you just give the body a moment to pause and reboot that system where it's not seeing any spikes in insulin, it will do it. And that's, again, back to the healing power of the body. So from a diabetic perspective, what we're seeing is that there's less insulin use. I get that the beta cells of the pancreas, if they're type 1 or type 2, may not be working anymore. In type 2, I get that the cells are not receiving the ability to be able to use insulin to open the door for glucose. But we can reboot that whole system by taking these elongated breaks from food and giving the body the respect that it deserves to heal itself. And that's the miracle that we're witnessing.
So Many are going to think to themselves, "Oh, fasting. Yeah, I get really hangry when I don't have food." And I want to kind of demystify, because so much goes into understanding fasting, and that's really the key. And that's why there's so many variations that you brought up, the 6 different fasting times. And perhaps you could kind of go on a little bit of a journey with us on bringing about taking out the fear of fasting, because many are going to say, "Oh, I've got a big meeting coming up, and I don't want to be, discouraged or weak or shaking." So talk to our audience from that perspective.
Yeah. So the first thing is, the best thing to do is to educate yourself. That's why I put all the book is about, there's all the science in there for both men and women. The whole first section really works well for both men and women. So educate yourself so you understand the process. We have a phrase that we use a lot in our world, which is knowledge is your fuel. It should become your fuel when you go into these fasted states, is that knowledge. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, like, if I was going to go run a marathon, I wouldn't just put some shoes on and go out and run 13 miles. I mean, I could, it would be doable, but I would be exhausted. I would hurt myself. Anybody knows you have to train, which is what we do in fasting. We have something across all our free platforms called Fast Training Week. It would be a beautiful thing. I just thought about this right now. It would be really beautiful to have offices join us in that. We put them, it's their scheduled times. And we encourage people to be curious about fasting. Don't be dogmatic about it. Be curious about it. Experiment with these different fasts. So once a month I put out different fasting lengths, and we practice it as a community. I educate with videos, and it's a really fun tool. The other thing that I want to say is that really the door into fasting starts with food. And so there are 3 food changes that will make fasting so much easier. The first is we got to get off the refined carbohydrates. So I don't care if you're gluten-free, not gluten-free. Let's go back to nature's carbs. I'm not saying we need to go full on keto or paleo. I'm just saying make sure that the majority of your carbs are coming from what the earth has provided us, the fruits, the vegetables, the potatoes. Let's use those as our carbohydrate load and get away from the refined sugars and flours. Then let's swap out our oils. If I came into every single household of the people listening right now, and I just took out their bad oils and put their good oils in the middle of the night, they would never know. They would never know. The taste doesn't make a difference. So we got to get the harmful oils out so we can bring the inflammation down. And then the third important food change that will make fasting easier is get off the chemicals. Get off the Diet Cokes, get off the Crystal Lights, the Splendas, all the diet culture, the diet food, that has, and even plastic water bottles, and all the stuff we're doing to intoxify ourselves in the name of health. We call them obesogens. We need to get those out. So if we start to educate ourselves on that and we make those 3 food changes, you will see that you were born to fast, and fasting actually becomes quite easy.
I enjoy that you're very passionate and it's like you just said, if we're going to run a marathon, first we need to actually understand what goes into having that outcome. And putting on your shoes is step 1. That's why we're listening to Dr. Mindy right now. You're putting on your shoes and you're starting to contemplate with an open mind. And the big piece that I love about being able to bring an expert like Dr. Mindy is she's walked the walk. And if we're going to keep with the marathon, she's ran a million marathons already.
A million.
And so when you get to the finish line, you'll turn around and say, I wish I could have brought my best friend with you. So today, share the episode, because today's the day where we start to bring our best friends into what it's going to take. Because one of the things that Dr. Mindy says is that it takes a community of support. And gosh, did we need a community in the pandemic? And this is where we come together as a community to bring those principles back in. And I think, being able to go through something as life-changing as starting to learn about fasting and what it can do for your well-being is critical. You did talk about some of the things that are very, very important, which is you don't want to have the non-nature carbs. You want to get the good oils in, and we're going to tease this up because you know what? This is all about you learning what are those bad oils and what are some of those nature's best carbohydrates that you can replace your breads with. There's a lot of fun in replacements. So,
yes.
Dr. Mindy, you have some great recipes too, because you kick it up a notch. And I was reading some of the recipes. I'm like, wow, I've never tried that before, but I'm willing to give my body something different. Tell me about your own personal journey while you started playing with some of the foods to make some of the recipes in Fast Like a Girl.
Yeah, well, this is so funny because thank you for asking me that, because I always, when I go out into the world, I'm like, I know I'm talking about fasting, but I'm at my heart, I'm a foodie. I love to make my house. We just, it was Father's Day yesterday and my kids are 23 and 20. My dad came over and we cooked together and we sat down and ate a very, very long dinner together. That's what we do as a family. So what I did with the foods, I call it, there's two styles of eating that I talk about in the book. One is called the ketobiotic diet. And the reason that I really wanted to highlight the biotic piece is because the keto movement took all the carbs out, which really was harmful to the microbiome. So I like to add those in. So a lot of fermented foods. We have to bring back the kimchis and the sauerkrauts and the probiotic yogurts. You have a whole set of bacteria in your gut that are helping you make serotonin, breaking down estrogen. They're supporting your immune system. They're giving you, neurotransmitters that make you happy. Like, we have to start to look at these microbes as our friends. And so when we mix the keto diet with the polyphenol, probiotic, prebiotic foods, we really start to bring the health of these microbes back. But then I also had a ton of fun. This is probably where I've had the most fun, to be completely honest, with understanding this concept that I call hormone feasting foods. And this all bundles down into progesterone. And progesterone is a very unique hormone. Men don't click off, but you don't have a lot of progesterone. Women, we have a ton of progesterone. In fact, it's the hormone that will help you shed your uterine lining the week before your period. And what progesterone needs is glucose to be a little higher, which is why fasting like a girl became very important, not fasting like everybody else, because you're not supposed to fast the week before your period. And we need glucose to be higher because the brilliant body, for the women listening, the brilliant body actually makes you more insulin resistant the week before your period. Okay, why does she do that? Because she needs glucose to be higher so she can make progesterone. So progesterone building foods are like bananas and mangoes and papayas and sweet potatoes and chocolate. And all of these are helpful to be able to make this killer hormone that calms us, sheds the uterine lining, and gives us so much GABA that really is helpful to reboot the stressful brain that we are operating in, this world that we're operating in. So I didn't want food to be lost in the fasting conversation. And so, yes, making these recipes were a ton of fun.
You're a girl after my own heart because I run to eat. And that's just the way I look at it. I used to do that. Now you can fast to eat.
Oh my God, that would have been a good title, Fast to Eat.
Fast to eat. So
yes.
I think we've got something very special. We might just call this episode Fast to Eat. So as we go through, Mindy, there's a couple of things that I want to go into on the food portion of it, because really eating can be fun. It can be so nutrient rich, and it can be so inviting to have people come together and try new things. Tell me about some new things that you ate that are like, oh, I don't really know what this is, but I'm going to try to incorporate it into my lifestyle.
Oh, I have two things that are my favorite now, but I was really not a fan of them in the beginning. So the first is sauerkraut. I wouldn't say I craved sauerkraut, But I knew that they were probiotic rich. And so I needed to bring that into my diet. So that would be, there's a lot of times I hear from people like, I don't really like sauerkraut. Well, if you don't like it, eat it anyways. I mean, really, let's just be honest. Like, let's be honest. You're at a bar and you're doing shots with your friend. Like, do you really like the taste of that? Like, no, you do it for the effect it's going to have on your brain.
Good for you. Well said.
Yeah. So why don't we do that with sauerkraut? Like, just freaking eat it, for God's sake. Kefir's the same thing. Kefir has trillions of good bacteria in it, but raw kefir is not like a a culinary taste bud experience. Now we have lots of ways in which we've taught kefir can be, but yeah, get a glass of kefir in your system every single day. So probiotic foods were a biggie, but here's the one that I've fallen in love with to replace bread, and it's radicchio. It's my new, if you go to my current YouTube videos, I'm all about the radicchio right now. So radicchio, it's bitter, so it supports the liver. The liver likes bitter foods, and it holds together. So you could put a burger in the middle of a radicchio leaf and wrap it. I'll take a couple of leaves, wrap it around. I'll even take one of my favorite mayonnaises is Primal Kitchen's Chipotle, because it has the right oils. I'll put a little of that mayonnaise on the inside of the radicchio leaf, put the burger in there, maybe even put a little bit of sauerkraut on there and some grass-fed cheese, and I'll roll it up, and boom, there's a way I like to break my fast. So those are kind of the two ways.
This is good stuff. I actually am growing some radicchio, so perhaps it'll be big enough for us to have a hamburger together. I don't know. It's pretty small right now. Okay, so going back to the lifestyle changes that are going to happen. One of the things that you hear a lot about is I'm gaining weight, but I'm still fasting. And the audience needs to recognize that there's going to be times in our life where you might be fasting, but you do gain weight. And then you have to ask yourself, why? What's the knowledge? Because the body tells you everything you need to know. The question is, are you actually listening? And I very much agree with the sauerkraut question. And I hope my sons will listen to this podcast, because you know what? Suck it up. This is the sauerkraut, and I'm putting it on the table. So now tell me about what happens when you think you're doing all the right things, yet your body says, yep, nope, I'm going to hold on to this weight.
Yeah. So again, here, let's break down weight in a new way. So your body is so brilliant. It cares about you so much that as the excess of glucose, the excess of toxins have infiltrated your body, it decided to take that excess and put it somewhere that would save your life. And so it put it as fat instead of storing it in your organs. So the first thing I want to say is, if you're struggling to lose weight, stop looking at yourself in the mirror and villainizing yourself, because your brilliant body did exactly what it needed to do, and it put it in an area that was safer than on the inside of you. Now, in that, we also know that the more this excess has accumulated, the harder your body's had to work, that for a lot of us, our detox pathways are broken. And I think this is a part of the conversation of detox that doesn't get highlighted enough. And a lot of you in your offices are using different detox protocols, and we could sit here and debate about all the ones that are the best. But the most important thing first is to make sure that the lymph's job is to remove toxins from the organs. Is that lymph open? I mean, this is where a chiropractic adjustment can be really powerful, because we start to open up cerebral spinal fluid, we relax muscles, we get joint mobility back, which is ultimately allowing lymph to move through the body so it could detox. So the part of that conversation that I highlight in the book is that if you are fasting and you are not losing weight, you're actually gaining weight, the first place to go is to those detox pathways. The second place, and this is kind of new, so here's some cutting edge information that I am just beginning to speak about, is that the body can't lose weight when it doesn't feel safe. So if you're in a chronic state of for women, I call it the rushing woman syndrome. Well, I didn't name that. Dr. Libby Weaver, it's a great book. I highly recommend it. But if the body is constantly in this state of go, 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 we're not prioritizing sleep. We're not prioritizing our parasympathetic nervous system and relaxing it. And we're staying stuck in fight or flight. Maybe we're even in the freeze, polyvagal freeze idea, and it doesn't feel safe. It will not lose weight. The body has to feel safe in order to lose weight. So ironically, I've actually had to pull people out of fasting who are doing it too much, pull people out of keto that are doing it too much, pull people out of their working out patterns just to get the body to feel safe again, and then come back and move them back into what I call a fasting lifestyle.
Fascinating. And you're right, I'm going to go to some of the celebrities that you've treated, and you've treated quite a few of them. They're so vast. And in your book, you talk about them. Share with us some, because it's always nice to hear about others, and we come back to ourselves and go, okay, well, my life is stressful and I do need to get into that safe space so I can. And I know myself, if I am stressing out, I can feel my body change. And there's the good stress, and then there's the bad stress. And many of us have been through the whole cycle of good and bad stress throughout our lives. And unfortunately, through a pandemic, we've had these moments to reflect on certain things. But from a celebrity's lifestyle, where it could be upside down and just totally chaotic, share with us some of their experiences, because we've had a lot of celebrities on our Adjusted Reality podcast.
Oh, good. Cool.
I've never been able to actually say to them, so what's the secret? So talk to us about some of those.
Well, I mean, the one who wrote the foreword and has become a very dear friend is Leanne Rimes. And I just want to start off and say what a beautiful human she is. And she came to me about a year and a half ago and asked for support in her hormones and understanding hormones. And so, for the last year and a half, we've been really working on helping her understand when she can do her more extroverted version of herself and when she needs to go into a more introverted, and how to time her tour schedule around her cycle and how to eat around her cycle. And so, ultimately, we've found a pattern that is working for her. And it's been beautiful to watch. Now, I will say that so much of her life, even though we can look at some of these celebrities and go, well, none of us won 2 Grammys at 14 years old, which is what she did.
Yeah.
None of us knew what it was like at 16 years old to be doing between 16 and 18. She had over 500 shows that she was on tour for. She had close to 70 people on payroll that she had to show up for. Her stories of how exhausted she was, and the adults around her telling her, get out and perform in front of 50, 60,000 people. Those are surreal moments. And it gives me a lot of empathy, by the way, for how we treat our celebrities and how we look at people that we idolize, because they're humans and they need rest too. And so what we've had to do with her is go back and teach her how to balance her nervous system again. I've had to go back and teach her how to reboot her neurotransmitter system, and teach her rest. I mean, I was just chatting with her on the phone this morning about what rest means and how do we lean into that without feeling guilty. And I think so many of us can really feel that for ourselves, that we don't, especially women, give ourselves enough opportunity to let our whole system reboot. And if you look at our hormones actually demand that we do. If you're a cycling woman, you need to let your system reboot the week before your period. And if you're a menopausal woman, the whole perimenopausal journey is about rebooting that system. And if we push through that, we will be sick. And, Leanne's been very vocal. At 30, she checked herself into a mental hospital. And at 39 found, and did a lot of spiritual work. She's done a ton of work on herself. And at 39, she told me that She just didn't want to go into her 40s carrying the same traumas that she's had in her whole life. And so we've been working on teaching her a new way of being that she never knew before. But we're all like that. We're all like that.
I sincerely appreciate you sharing that with us. And you know, if Leanne Rhymes listens to this, I sincerely reach out to you and thank you for sharing your story, because so many people think that celebrity life is just so awesome. They never see the other side. And to be able to be humanized back to, I am just a girl who has a fantastic talent, and I need to live my best life as well. And Dr. Mindy, you have done that, enriched so many millions of lives, to be able to say, doesn't matter if I'm a celebrity or a single mother or father, I need to live my best life. And it's the lifestyle changes we make. And it's the lifestyle changes that open our possibilities. And like today, I'm going to find some kimchi. I have no idea what it is, but I'm going to go find it. I'm going to eat it today. So thank you, Dr. Mindy. Now,
amazing.
Let's talk to our audience as we wrap up today about some practical strategies or lifestyle changes. We know fasting can be fantastic. We also love food, but there's so much more than just fasting and food that make our lives enriched and worth, getting up in the morning and feeling as energetic and enthusiastic and as passionate as Dr. Pelz. So give us some of your more intimate things that come to mind when you think about living your best life.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a book that I put out a couple of years ago for women going through the menopausal journey. It's called The Menopause Reset. And it actually, Hay House purchased it after I had put it out, and we're reissuing it. It actually launches tomorrow, which is ironic.
Fantastic. And congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. So there are actually 5 steps that I lay out in there, foundational lifestyle tools that are so important, and they apply to both men and women. So let me just highlight them here, because I think they can be a way for us to come back home to ourselves and to understand that we're living in a time where the shiny object wins. So it can be the shiny object of something like Ozempic, which is like out there in the weight loss drugs, or it can be the shiny object of a supplement, but it's still exogenous. And what I think your podcast is really the foundation it's built upon is the concept of you heal from the inside out. So let's not get lost in the shiny objects. And here are the 5 to do. One we've been talking about, which is build a fasting lifestyle, but build it unique to you. That's the message of Fast Like a Girl. Like, it's be your own N of 1. Stop trying to do it like everybody else. The second piece is we need to vary our food. So women, we need to vary it to our hormones. But if we expand that, we need to vary it according to the seasons. We need to vary it so we can feed the trillions of microbes in our gut that need a variety of food. We have to stop eating the same thing over and over again. Third is exactly what I just led to, which is our microbiome. You are 10 times more microbes than human cells. So why have we put so much focus on the human cells? Why it's the microbes moment. How do we bring these microbes to life and rebuild a microbiome that maybe you've been on rounds and rounds of antibiotics? Maybe you're a woman who's taken birth control for 20 years. You have decimated your microbiome. Let's bring that health back. Number 4 is we got to start detoxifying. And many of the people listening to this really understand detox. So whatever it is, stop toxifying yourself and start detoxifying yourself. And we all need to be doing that in this modern world. And then number 5 is what I call rushing woman syndrome. But, and again, I have to give Libby Weaver, she's a beautiful author and friend, and she wrote the book called The Rushing Woman Syndrome. But it's really about the parasympathetic needs of the human body. We've got to practice parasympathetic. We've got to bring back the parasympathetic nervous system. Humans are losing that. And again, as chiros, and I know we have a lot of listeners who are not chiros, but this is the benefit of the chiropractic adjustment. I mean, I just saw and I know you and I, probably know him mutually. Dr. TJ Osborne is my chiro, one of the best adjusters on the planet. I just saw him last week because I was in such a sympathetic state and I couldn't get my body to relax that I had to go get my chiropractic adjustment. I go on a weekly basis to a chiropractor. And when I'm home, I go to TJ. When I'm out and about, I find my peeps because I know it's that important for me to care for that parasympathetic, and nothing moves you in the parasympathetic like a chiropractic adjustment.
Oh, I don't think we can go any further with that statement. We just dropped the mic. Okay.
Excellent. I love it.
It has been an absolute true pleasure to have you on Adjusted Reality today, and our audience learn and think through some of the choices that they're making on a daily basis. Because if you can only take one bite at a time, you got to make it count. And that's really what it's about. Dr. Mindy, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on Adjusted Reality today.
Oh, thank you, Sherry. And I just, shout out to all of us that are out there teaching what the human body needs. I mean, we're all in this together. So I'm super excited to be here to talk to you. It's been a true joy.
I want to thank you for tuning into Adjusted Reality as we spoke to Dr. Mindy Pelz about how to unleash your body's potential for healing and well-being. It's an exciting moment for us to reflect on what does it take to be that much better. And Mindy said it best, well, you need to eat to fast. And I really do appreciate that. Remember, looking back, that varying your fasting can make a big difference because our body doesn't want to go eating the same thing every day, nor does it want to be fasting the same way every day. So this is an opening to so much more exploration for you. Those oily, bad fats that are in your home, get rid of them. Your life will be way better off. And you can look up and Google some of those bad fats that might be in your home and change them out for those good fats. And of course, we need to look at our detox. What does that look like? And how do we ensure that we're doing the best for ourselves and our family? And one of them is those plastic water bottles, BPA. And what can we do to just relieve ourselves from the bad toxins that come into our life? And just looking at the simple things, bringing in the better foods. What are some of the choices? She noted that, her bread choice changed out to radicchio. And I like that because I know in my family, bread is a big piece to our lifestyles, and we can do better just by trying new things. So get rid of those bad carbs and bring in, and I really shouldn't say bad carbs, bring in the better nature's choice carbs. That's what we really should be looking at here. And last but not least, you have to take sometimes the time off. If you're going on a vacation, you got a big meeting coming up, maybe fasting isn't the time for that. But knowledge is power. So I'm going to ask you to increase your knowledge on fasting and what it means for your lifestyle. Just remember, this podcast was brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress and a special gift for listening today. You can visit f4cp.org/health to get a copy of our Chiropractic Care, a natural approach to health at every stage of life ebook. Now, you heard Dr. Mindy Pelz talk about it is fundamental to make your individualized choices for your body, and that chiropractic was one of the ways that you can start to have a better well-being with choices that are made. If you've never been to a chiropractor, perhaps today is the day. You go to f4cp.org and /find a doctor, and you find a local doctor in your neighborhood, because the best way to show some of the stress and detox is to be able to have a coach that works with you and for you. Now, don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with family and friends, rate and review. We can't do Adjusted Reality without you. You're the audience that makes it happen. And I just want to tell you today, We appreciate your support, and we absolutely look forward to checking in with you again soon.